people who work for the super wealthy, what stuff have you seen? Had a client who purchased a newly built penthouse apartment and wanted a jacuzzi on the balcony. It would have meant a structural column was needed in the middle of the balcony below which the contractor who built the apartment block wouldn't go for, as it would impact selling that apartment. Client buys the apartment below, approves the column, jacuzzi is installed, then privately sells the apartment below. Voila, problem solved. Did appliance repair. One lady had a 10x12 walk-in wine cooler, floor to ceiling stocked with wine, in her living room. Another person's house was made of imported stone and had a library the size of a two-car garage. My favorite was an old lady who just had my stuff. She took care of what she had. Every time I went, she gave me $40 for a nice beer with your lady. I would always refuse, but she insisted and was basically the typical granny everyone would want. Worked in recruitment finding crew for super yachts many years ago. Put forward a candidate for a chief engineer on a very well-known yacht owned by a very well-known individual. Was the perfect fit of knowledge and experience, and the guy was super friendly and nice as well. They turned him down because he wears glasses and the owner doesn't want anyone with disabilities working on board. I briefly cleaned houses one summer, and each houses were insane. Some had elevators. Some had stalls in their master bedroom. One had a literal cave manufactured in the bathroom, with shower heads all throughout it. You could walk from one end and come out the other side of the bathroom, split by a massive hot tub. What struck me as odd, in almost every house, was the sense of disuse. They had grand pianos covered in dust, expensive lamps, and throw pillows with the tags still on them. Sprawling playrooms with every toy any child could want, totally devoid of playing children. The weirdest house I cleaned, though, wasn't huge and it wasn't gorgeous. It was pretty normal on the outside, but inside, the entire house was filled with piles of clothes. Everywhere. I pulled aside my fellow cleaner and asked, with all sincerity, how to clean this house. She told me to go around the piles as best you can. They had a mountain of clothes in the living room, like something out of a cartoon. Every couch had stacks of brand new clothes with tags on them. They were the only folded clothes anywhere. In the bedroom, it was the same. Smaller piles in every corner, couldn't fully open or close doors around them. The kids' bathroom didn't even have a shower curtain. Best guess after cleaning that house as best we could is that they don't wash clothes. I think they just buy more and discard the dirty clothes into the piles. I think about that house a lot and wonder if they ever got their shit together. I'd honestly be too embarrassed by that to even hire a maid. Sounds like compulsive hoarding. My neighbor is a compulsive hoarder. Came from a rough childhood, ugly divorce. Dad drank. Mom had mental illness. On trash night, she takes her truck out and picks up all kinds of stuff they don't need. I think she's added free Facebook Marketplace crap to her hoard. I counted 65 chairs and like 20 bicycles. Unloads her truck in the back and leaves all the crap out there, never using it. And it all gets ruined by the weather. Inside their house is the same way, just stacks of paper and junk. She still won't part with it. I'm about to call the city. She's nice, but it's a lot to look at, and we're worried about rats. Her husband and kids hate it, but she loses her shit when they try to talk to her about it. It is an illness, but she has no interest in treatment, so the city is going to have to force the first step. I did carpentry for a summer to save up money for school. We would go to huge mansions and amazing houses that needed work done. Usually easy stuff, decorative things, so most times it would be 1 to 2 days of work. Most times we would work, the family would be home. It's not a problem, very normal. Once a family had kids and they watched a TikTok video on what poor people eat, and it was about how to cook things like 10-cent ramen and bread with sausages to make hot dogs. They laughed and thought it was fun, so made the food to try in the kitchen. They hated it all. This was the food I grew up eating my whole life. That packet of ramen was the same as the dinner waiting for me at home. My friend is a mechanic. A wealthy, fat, famous, and all-round unlikable entrepreneur came into his work one day and took a liking to his coworker. He asked my friend's coworker to come and work for him, maintain his car collection. It was really good pay, and he got to work on some cool cars, so he thought, why not? His days were spent working on old, rare sports cars on his sprawling property, But every now and again he'd get sent to Europe or the United States to check out cars said entrepreneur was interested buying. He'd get sent to auctions all the time and ring up said entrepreneur while it was happening so he could bid on the car on his behalf. Edit, not Jay Leno. If you can figure out the country I'm in, you'll 100% know who it is. Not Clarkson either. Yet, it was Clive. Never work for millionaires. They're just trying to prove something. Work for billionaires. They know what they want and will just pay what it costs to get it right. A caretaker getting paid 6 American figures for keeping up a multi-million-dollar house that gets used 2 weeks a year. I've heard there's a behavioral gap between the super wealthy and the absurdly, ridiculously wealthy, where the latter become almost normal people. The former will be constantly trying to look rich, obsessed with appearances and status, etc. The latter will invite you over to watch Netflix, wearing yesterday's shorts and ordering Papa John's for dinner. It's like when they've been so rich for so long, some people just stop caring about it. I work in the auto industry and was visiting a luxury brand recently. Talked to the GM about the brand wanting certain things a certain way for their customers. He told me he read that a large number of wealthy people don't buy luxury cars. The rich buy nice cars, the wealthy buy dependable cars and yachts or planes. And I remembered back in my OEM days when the demographics of a car and its competition showed that Lexus 350 customers used 60% of their income on car payment. What struck me the most is how extremely picky they are, and how angry they get at anything that isn't exactly how they want it. Because I'm noticing myself drift towards that, even though I'm nowhere near wealthy. It makes me question what I feel entitled to. Everything else, I think of it as alien behavior that I could never understand. This is the only one where I see a bit of myself. I struggled with this picky thing myself when I moved into leadership roles in my career and started delegating work. I'd send out the work with clear instructions, and I'd get something back different than what I would have done, missing things I'd consider the standard way to do things or different from what I'd explained I wanted, etc. It led to a bit of an epiphany for me. The saying, if you want something done right, do it yourself, isn't about everyone fucking things up. It's about learning to accept some slight variations from what you have in mind when you farm out some work, whatever it may be. If you want a thing done to an exacting degree and nothing less than perfection will suffice, that's ok, but you need to do it yourself. I work in software with offshore teams. Standard way is a hole you can drive a bus through. I learned to write up the standard way and attach whenever applicable. Same issue for junior engineers, they often have not yet learned the standard way. Ended up hiring a trainer to walk folks through how we do our work. Even then, I learned to give more latitude and prioritize goals so the most important goals were achieved. It was a lot of growth as a manager to learn how to empower the team when you delegate. If you micromanage, you get no upside from folks who see a better solution. The owner of the company I work for hates paper clips, much prefers binder clips. I wish I was rich enough to have a hard stance on something that trivial. I have a hard stance on that. Paper clips come off easily, and you have to be super careful with a stack of paper clip documents because they might get stuck together if you move them wrong. One clip might grab another clip stack. I don't like binder clips because they're bulky, but will use them if I need to. Staples, though, that's where it's at. I've got a giant stapler, and if I can staple it, I will. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need to be able to take things apart. But if I can staple it, I'm stapling it. Fight me. I'll change a few details to protect the innocent, but I used to give guitar lessons in a very rich area, and the company I worked for had a lot of celebrity and or just ridiculously rich clients. I saw in-home rivers, elevators, waterfalls, live-in chefs, 40-car garages, fully automated mansions that could change the season indoors, etc. The thing that stood out most to me was the boredom of humanity. Like one guy I became friends with had 17 off-road vehicles, a house bigger than his Lakers star neighbor, and his Chicago Bulls star neighbor for that matter, and traveled to different extreme game competitions every weekend. But when I came over for the lesson, he just wanted to talk about Nirvana, watch TV, learn Pearl Jam bass riffs, and go to shows. The second thing that stood out to me was that the ratio of cool people to screwed up people seemed relatively the same between the super rich and the normies. Like there was one guy who wanted lessons with his very young son to connect with him, but only lasted 3 minutes every lesson before he had to take an important call or run off to an emergency board meeting. You could see the kid was in a giant playground of a mansion but was just crushed. However, I also gave lessons to a family where the parents were two high-powered lawyers, one of whom is now running for Congress, and they were absolutely amazing to those kids. Always attentive, would drop calls from celeb clients to fix a tricycle wheel, would lovingly enforce homework rules, etc. Great people. That was about the same ratio amongst my middle-class clients and amongst my poor clients. The last thing that stood out as the one really obvious advantage to being rich was the people's physical appearance. By and large, they were almost all very good-looking people at any age, and most without surgery. It's actually kind of incredible what the body can do when you're able to always feed it healthy foods, live-in chefs, exercise whenever you want in a variety of ways with or without leaving your home, in mansion gyms, indoor-outdoor multi-tiered waterfall pools, week-long skiing trips, personal trainers, etc., and the lack of daily, grinding mental stress. I'm not saying they didn't have stress or they didn't work hard, but most did not have that existential stress about what might happen if they got fired because they didn't work the extra Saturday, or the stress of a boss breathing down your neck when you're at a dead-end job just hoping for a living wage. There is something to be said for the mental benefit of hope and joy and inner calm, and unfortunately, money does help with those things. So I did see a large health benefit to people with loads of money also. And lastly, I don't believe any of these people were self-made. This type of wealth is not just working hard and climbing the corporate ladder using nothing but your bootstraps. This type of money is generational wealth with decades-long investment accounts from things set up by ancestors. I'm not saying they haven't worked hard, but turning $100 into $1,000 and turning $100 million into $110 million are two very different things, and the latter is inarguably easier from both a percentage and opportunity standpoint.